Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of The Points of Articulation. I'm your host Dave, and if you're new to the channel, welcome everybody. Today I'm looking at the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge Millennium Falcon, released in 2019. This interpretation of the Millennium Falcon was first seen in Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. Now, usually at this point of my channel, I like to give some behind-the-scenes information about the ship, or maybe statistics in the films or extended media. But you know what? It's the Millennium Falcon. We're pretty much all on the same page with this particular ship. So for today, I'm going to read the back of the box and see what Disney has to say about the Millennium Falcon. Original designation, the YT-1300 492727ZED, was a Corellian YT-1300F light freighter, most famously used by the smugglers Han Solo and Chewbacca during the Galactic Civil War. The Falcon is equipped with an Imperial military-grade armor, quad laser cannons, a starboard docking ring, and a hyperspace integrator. Extensive modifications to the ship have made it one of the fastest vessels in hyperspace. So that does it for the write-up on the box. What do you guys think about it? Do you think it should have added some information about the Kessel Run or something like that? Let me know in the comments below. So getting back to this particular miniature, for its size, it's about 5 inches long, which is amazing. Even though I do prefer the smaller ships, these Galaxy Edge vessels are nice and big, and it's a welcome change. The ship does feature a lot of die-cast and also moving parts, so we do have a lot to cover. For those who are new to my channel, what I like to do is go over the mold with a fine-tooth comb, get a nice close-up of these vessels, see what we're actually paying for, look at the paint, put on a stand compared to some other vessels, and then we'll be done. So let's get started. Alright, let's kick this review off looking at the mold. Like in all my videos, I will go over all the major sections of the ship, and then we'll get a nice close-up look to see those fine details. Now, when it comes to the Millennium Falcon, if you're a fan of my channel or Star Wars in general, this ship and its components should need no introduction. But if you're new, I'll go through them. In the front, we have our floodlights, which aren't really molded in there, but they're supposed to be. We have our mandibles in the front. In the interior, we have our missile launcher. Many times there's concussion missiles in there. Pretty dope. Coming back, we have our sensor dish, which does move, and we'll take a quick look at that right now. For the sensor dish, it doesn't completely go all the way around. You can see the mold hinders it because of the rectangle dish here, but it is able to rotate almost a full circle. Pretty nice. Pretty nice. I love when they add moving parts. And speaking of moving parts, we do have the top and bottom quad turret, and they do move. So let's take a quick look at that. And moving in, we can actually turn this quad cannon all the way around, which is really good. For the bottom, again, this one's a little more tight, but it is able to rotate all the way around. Pretty cool. Nice. Moving on from there, besides this beautiful detailing and paneling here, we have our docking ring on the side. In the aft, we have our 6 heat exhaust vents, looking good. We have our engines in the back, looking very nice and detailed. Again, we're going to have a nice close-up look of all these details in just a few. Another docking ring. And right here, we have our cockpit, which has recessed windows, and we'll take a nice look at that in just a few. Very nice so far. The only gripe I have with the mold as of right now is these very thin mandibles right here. I mean, they're very thin. Usually they should be a little bit thicker. I don't know. What do you guys think? Kind of looks a little thin there. But we'll have a closer look later on. Right here should be the entry ramp. Of course, we have another quad gun. We have landing gear, which is in its folded up position, and the paneling is shut. Very nice. Some beautiful details here, looking great. We have 3 screws holding it together. 2 more components right here, which hold it together, which is covered up, which is a welcome surprise. Peg ports for the stand, and copyright crap. All in all, a very interesting model, so now let's get a closer look. Alright, having a closer look, let's begin with the bottom of the vessel. You can see the copyright crap, China. We have our screw, 2 peg holes for the stand, and just take a moment to look at this beautiful detailing down here. Nothing is flat on this ship whatsoever. Lots of nooks and crannies and modules sticking out. We have some recesses as well. Beautiful paneling. Fantastic stuff. And I heard some people say they didn't really like this ship. They didn't like the mold. And is it perfect? No. But, I do think it does have its pros. It has a lot of nice little details, as you can see as we're looking here. Really great stuff. Here's our entry ramp right here. Looking pretty nice. And I love the caps they put on for these screws or locking mechanisms. Fantastic stuff. I wish everybody did that. Pretty nice. You can see the center section with the quad gun, which is nicely detailed if we have a close look. I wish they would have put a little molding on the sides to make it look like 4 barrels, but it is what it is. Also, they didn't really add the window down here, or even on the top. I know I'm jumping the gun by turning the ship, but no window. What are you going to do? I guess it's like right there, if you want to get technical. But it would have been cool if it was molded in. But nice gun. I do like this. I think it looks pretty neat. Moving on to the front. Again, some nice recessing, some panel lines. Looking amazing. I love the detail on here. I'm not going to lie. You can see some of the paint bleeding here. We'll talk about that in a few. Another screw. Again, if I hold it like this, you can see nothing is flat. Nice angles and curves. Beautiful looking vessel. Then we have the front here. And here we have the mandibles. You can see how thin they are. Maybe it's just me, but I do think they should have been a little thicker. But what are you going to do? Besides their thinness, they do look pretty good. We can see inside these circles that are recessed. We have some hoses and pipes. And paneling looking good. We have the underneath of the cockpit. Looking fantastic with a screw. We got some paint on there as too. Pretty cool. Starting from here and going around the sides, you can see some beautiful detail here. We're going to look at the cockpit later. But the docking ring, very nicely done. And then coming around the sides, it's basically flat with a seam line. But where it shines right here is the engine section. We have some blue and black mixed together with this beautiful design here. I think they did a nice job with this. What do you guys think of the aft section? Let me know in the comments below. I actually think it's my favorite part. Pretty dope. Coming around the ship, you can see again, more seam line. Docking ring right there. Coming to the side, and then we have our mandibles again. Coming to the front. Oopsies. You see little things are molded here and there. I guess the floodlights are there. Pretty cool. And then for the interior, it's basically a seam line and flat. Nothing molded on the top or bottom either. But very nice. A lot of people don't put anything in there. So, acceptable. Pretty nice. So let's start looking at the top. We'll start from the front and move our way back. We can see the beautiful design work here. I love the paneling here with these little squares. You can see them as the lines move. A lot of Millennium Falcons have that in their mold. And I love it because the wash just gets in there and fills all that in. And really makes it pop. Fantastic stuff coming down the center here. Look at all this stuff. Beautiful. Again, we have another quad turret. Some beautiful detailing going around the side as well. Pretty nice. Some molding in the front. Great stuff. We have our sides here. Looking fantastic. Some great molding on here. Pretty cool. Now coming around the top. Look at all that paneling. Great stuff. Really it is. I think they did an amazing job with the detailing on the main body. Like, I'm not going to lie, it does have its issues, but on the whole, a pretty decent looking vessel. We can see this nice neck section for the cockpit. Looking good. For the sensor dish, you can see a little detailing on there in the back, which looks pretty cool. It's not a lot by all means, but pretty nice. And there's no detailing on the front of the dish at all. But what are you going to do? For the quad gun, again, we looked at the one on the bottom. It's basically the same mold. We have some nice detailing coming around here. Looking pretty good. Again, I wish the barrels were detailed a little better, but it is what it is. Moving to the aft, again, the beautiful detailing and pipes continue. Pretty nice. Same goes for this side. Very cool. And then here's my favorite part leading to the aft. We have our 6 heat exhaust vents. Looking good. Nothing is flat on here. You can see everything has little recesses or raised up sections. And it just looks like an engine section. This looks beautiful. Excellent stuff. A little paint bleed in here, but like I mentioned, we'll talk about that. But a fantastic piece. Pretty nice. Now, I really wanted to take a moment and talk about the cockpit here. If you look closely, each window is recessed in and painted. And I love when they do recessed windows because, you know, in space, everything's a component. Everything slides into different things, so it has to be airtight. And I love the idea of having, you know, basic frames, and the window would be on the inside and sandwiched in with support structures. So that's pretty awesome. I do like that quite a bit. Very nice. A little heavy on the paint right here, but not too bad. The Falcon's supposed to be dirty, right? Then we have the front. Looking very nice. It's a little flat in the front. All the detailing is around the sides of it. But pretty cool. Nice. And that's everything I have to say about the mold. Hopefully I covered everything. I spent a lot of time on this bad boy, and for good reason. It does have a lot of nice molding going for it. I know some people out there are gonna rip it apart for the thin mandibles in the front, or the lack of detail on the quad guns or the sensor dish. But besides those components, looking at the main body here, it is filled to the brim with detail, and it even goes to the bottom. And one more thing, if anybody's wondering, the bottom is plastic. The mandibles, the cockpit, and the whole top is die cast. And you can see the difference between the paint there, which we'll talk about. But a nice piece, it really is. Very nice. So now, let's take a look at the paint. And now, looking at that paint on the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge Millennium Falcon, this baby features 8 different colors. First up is a nice light gray. It's the main color of the vessel. Pretty nice color choice, in my opinion. You can see it on the top, the bottom, the sides, everything. Now, one issue some might have is that the top, which is die-cast, does not match the bottom half at all. You can see they tried to, but it's just not exact. If I turn it like this, you can see what I'm talking about. The top and the bottom look completely different. And, yeah, it's a shame. But you know what? On the stand, it sits about that high off the ground. About 2 of my fingers worth. So you're never really going to see the bottom anyway. But, it could be a problem for some. You could also see the paint difference with the quad cannon and the sensor dish as well. Not a big deal, but something I should note. Moving on from there, we do have a couple dark grays. We have one shade of gray that's on all the paneling, which looks pretty good. That's also on the bottom in 2 sections. Well, actually 3. Looking good. And then we have really dark gray for the heat exhaust vents. Now, I thought these were black, but upon further inspection, it is a very dark gray. So pretty neat. Speaking of black, we have 2 different types of black on here. First is a normal black on these sections right here. On the underneath, there is nothing. But then we have glossy black for the cockpit windows. And this looks amazing. Real nice and clean, as we saw when I was zoomed in. It looks pretty amazing. The light just bounces off of that. Very nice. Moving on from there, we do have some red. And you can see that scattered throughout the paneling, underneath the gun as well, in the aft section and front. and also on the underneath. Now, a major problem I have with the paint is with the red. As you can see, it does bleed here. And I think that's a shame. But besides the bleeding of the red in some spots here and there, it's actually a nice paint job. Ugh, what are you going to do? Moving on from there, however, we do have a couple other colors. We have blue for the engine section in the aft. And that looks nice. It's not super out there. It blends in really well, and I think it's a nice touch. And finally, we have wash. As you can see, it's a nice light gray, sorta, and it covers everything, really bringing out the nooks and crannies. Very nice. You can see it on the plastic sensor dish. Really brings out the detail, which there really isn't none in the front. But on the back there is, and I think it looks good. Now there is also another wash that's really dark, almost a black wash, right back here. And I think that looks nice. All in all, it's got a lot of paint. Many people might have issues with the bleeding, but I love what they did with the wash here. I think it looks great. You can see even the bottom is washed. And it's just a nice looking piece. Very nice. So that does it for the mold as well as the paint. So now let's put this baby back on a stand, compare it to some other vessels, and then we'll be done. And just like other Galaxy's Edge vessels, it does come with a stand. This one has the Rebellion or Resistance symbol. Looking good. On top of the pylon, we have our 2 pegs to connect it to the ship. And here we have 2 holes on the vessel itself. Put it in like so. It's going to hold in with friction. There's no snaps or clicks. Just give it a little force to get it in there. And just like that, everybody, you are good to go. And now for a quick size comparison with the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge Millennium Falcon seen in the center. I have it next to some other Galaxy's Edge vessels I've previously reviewed. First, on the right hand side, we have our Resistance Transport, which looks very nice. And finally, on the left hand side, we have the TIE Echelon, a very interesting looking vessel as well. And if you at home are interested in seeing reviews of any of these vessels, check the links in the description below. And that does it today for my review of the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge Millennium Falcon, released in 2019. All the Galaxy's Edge vehicles I'm reviewing or will review were bought for me by my good friend Barb, who went down to Florida, Galaxy's Edge, and Walt Disney World, and picked these up for me. So everybody in the comments say thank you, Barb, because without her, I would not have any of these. And, in the review, we looked at this ship hardcore together. I love the vessel. I love the detailing. I know some people are going to have issue with some of the things on here. But, it is what it is. For the mold, it definitely has some issues, but it's not too bad at all. The only issue I personally have is I think that the mandibles are a little too thin in the front. But you know what? When I put this on a stand, put it next to the other ships in the collection, it is beautiful. Nice line work, beautiful modules, recesses, all the stuff we think of when you think of Millennium Falcon is on here. I think the strongest part of this vessel is the aft section with the heat exhaust vents and the engines. To me, it looks beautiful. It really does. Now for the paint, I really like what they were going for here. The light gray, the dark grays working together with the beautiful wash. Excellent stuff. One of my favorite parts of the original trilogy is looking at the ship models they used, and even the 1/1 prop replicas like the outside of the Falcon or Luke's X-Wing or the Y-Wings that were at the Yavin base. Everything was dirty, filthy, and it wasn't just a paint deco. It was something to make the viewer go, wow, this stuff is old, it's used, it's been through a lot, and it makes things as simple as a spaceship like you see in front of us have a little character. How'd it get like that? And it gets your mind thinking. And I love the attention to detail like that. It just makes you think of like when you're driving down the road and you see a car that went off-roading, or a truck, I should say, and it's covered with mud. Don't lie to me. Somebody out there went, oh, I wonder what they got into. It's the same thing. It gets the mind going and makes you think outside the box. And that's why I love when people add details to the paint scheme. It gives the ships and characters and items a lot of history, a lot of wonder, and that's pretty cool. Now, having said all that, the paint is not perfect. I think the only area where this particularly fails is the red. There's several spots on here where the paint bleeds. And yes, I know it's a shame, but there's nothing I can really do about it. It is what it is. And don't forget, just like other Galaxy's Edge vessels, this does come with a cool stand with a rebellion symbol on the bottom, or resistance, whichever. Very nice. And that's everything I have to say about the Falcon today. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, smash that like button. If you'd like to see new reviews every Thursday, subscribe. As always, I want to take a moment and say thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to watch my content. I greatly appreciate it, and I hope to see you next time. Bye, everybody.